Okay, hello folks. So today's question is on clairaudience. How do we improve on clairaudience? Now, the person who emailed me, he put a lot of sub-questions there, and I'll answer them, these little questions throughout. Let's go through the causation chain of clairaudience first. Okay, it's raining outside, you hear the rain, you quietly pay attention to it. There's 6 gates in the mind. There are 5 senses in the mind itself. You want only sound consciousness gate to be active and paying attention, so mindfulness through that gate, so all the other gates switch off. Your eyes are closed and you're listening to the rain. Now, there's no accompanying thoughts, there's no accompanying feelings, there's no accompanying visualizations. You're just purely paying attention. What will begin to happen is everything will slow down as you pay attention, and then your mental space will expand. Slowing down moves you through the astral. Expansion of consciousness moves you through the mental. So just observe the sound, primarily the brain, but all sounds around you, and just be mindful of them to make everything quiet. That's step 1. Step 2, we select a particular sound, an aspect or frequency of the brain, and we pay attention to that. I like to use a singing bowl for this exercise, because you hit the singing bowl and you get a good minute of tone as it goes deeper and deeper, and that's your meditation object. All other sounds disappear and you become one-pointed on the sound. And you can use gongs and other sound meditation objects if you wish. The reason why I like singing bowls, Tibetan chimes, and even playing chanting, and just pay attention to the sound of the chanting, is because they have a certain quality of sacredness underlying them. And that sacredness gives you a higher quality experience than if it was the sound of traffic, for instance. So your meditation objects, if they're nature or they're sacred, you get a better result than their man-made sounds, like music that people use to unwind, for instance. All right, so that's exercise 2, one-pointed concentration through sound consciousness. Exercise 3, those 2 exercises, as you get this slowing down, moving through the astral as a side effect, and you get this release of space in the mental, you'll start to be aware of a deep stillness underlying the sound. Now, the stillness under the sound is what actually puts sound consciousness into equanimity for clairaudience to function. This is an essential component. So what do? We simply pay attention to the sound of stillness underneath the sound. So it's not the feeling of stillness, not a visualization of what it might come through as. It's the sound of emptiness underneath. So it's an absence of sound. So you move from hearing to not hearing, and everything goes blank. So this paying attention to the stillness underneath the sound gives you a type of equanimity, emptiness of the sound consciousness. This is an essential door to step through. That's your 3rd exercise. Now, your 4th exercise would be monitoring any interruptions you had during those practices and reflecting them off your black and white mirror. So you would have been doing black and white mirror work on other aspects of your training, but now what we want to do is ensure that black and white mirror is balanced in relation to sound consciousness. So if you hear a particular type of sound and that makes you unbalanced, let's say you're driving in traffic, someone beeps the horn, and every time you hear someone beep the horn, you become emotionally disturbed, then you have to look at, what element is becoming unbalanced, and start to define your black and white mirror and work with your mirror in relation to harmonizing and balancing out those sounds. So this is super important. So black and white mirror work. So the defining of your mirror and the releasing process, where you're breathing the air element into the emotion and begin releasing it, or whatever other emotion it might be around the other elements, and creating equanimity. So that's covered in the online training. Now, the next aspect, once you've gone past the mirror work, the defining and the releasing process, we're moving into visualization work. We want the imagination, so not visual, imagination of sound. So let's say you're doing the gong exercise, you hit the gong, the sound starts to disappear, but now instead of paying attention to it disappearing, you, with your imagination, keep the tone loud and you hold it there. So you go through a range of imagination exercises, hearing people speak, listening to music in your imagination, listening to sutras, listening to sacred sounds, imagining the sounds of nature. It'll be relatively easy for any of the exercises you used for meditation objects, for concentration objects. So that'll come in quite easily. The next aspect to look at, once you've mastered the imagination exercises, is to bring them into the subtle mind. So let's say you closed your eyes, you created the sound of the gong in your imagination, and you hold it there. Now, in daily life, you're walking down the street, you want to be able to put the sound of that gong in your imagination around you while you're doing something else, while you're walking. So you have a multitasking aspect. So clairaudience doesn't tend to work very efficiently until you bring the skill into the subtle mind and you get this door open in the subtle mind. So we want to do multitasking exercises, walking down the street and using the subtle mind to generate the imagination of these sounds. And the reason we do this has many aspects to it. The first is that information flow that comes through sound consciousness from, let's say, the astral plane into your physical sound consciousness moves through the equanimity, the stillness underneath the activity that you're doing. So you have to be able to pay attention to that stillness while you're doing things in order for it to be practical, functional clairaudience. The other aspect of it is that the clairaudience moves through not only the stillness, but the actual imagination part of your brain. The part of you that imagines things is the part where the information moves through. Now, your brain can't tell the difference between something you imagine and something that physically happens. It's essentially running through a very, very similar vibrational space in consciousness. So if you see a tree and you imagine the tree, your consciousness can't tell the difference. And that's why when you visualize yourself doing bodybuilding exercises, your muscles grow. You get a physiological response because there's a part of you that can't tell the difference. So what we want to do is make this bridge happen so that as you're training these exercises, that you'll get this nice, clean imagination skill that opens up a door between the unconscious mind's ability to communicate with the conscious. Now, clairaudience can function from just a higher part of you talking to a lower part of you. Your body consciousness is very environmentally aware and has an ability to protect you, to say, hey, there's something bad happening nearby, be careful. So normally we will feel the hair on our spine go up and go, oh, what's going on? I'm in a dangerous environment. But we can also get this type of information clairaudiently. So a higher mind, higher self communicates with lower self. It also will relate to people who are utilizing spirit guides, deities, evocational work, and so forth, that they have an ability to communicate information to. If this is the door that you want to use, you can work that door. Now, the next step in this is breathing the air element through that particular gate of your mind. So as you are training the exercise in Barden's book around clairaudience, you want to be vital breathing and air element breathing into the organ of the ear, into the astral translation function of what you hear, and into the air element of the mind itself, and synchronize mental, astral, and physical body through the air element of the conductor to create further equanimity and awaken clairaudience. There are two energies that are very good for the synchronicity, air element and akasha. Akasha tends to have a deeper equanimity, and air element has more of a form conductivity. So if you're working with non-dual beings, you need to work with akasha. And if you're working with astral beings, you need to work with their element. And you'll find that once you have these harmonized and you have the synchronicity synchronized between the bodies on body consciousness to astral unconscious to spirit unconscious, synchronized, you can observe these sounds coming through, and they're tangible sounds. Now, I get a lot of reports from students of while they're meditating, they hear their name screamed in their ear really loudly, that someone screams their name. And there's a strong astral energy around your identity, your name. You hear your name a lot. So this astral identity around your name is very, very strong. So when energy comes through, information comes through to get your attention, there'll be a spike on that frequency. So it only makes sense that as you're working with these particular skills, that wherever there's the most amount of astral energy contained, you're going to have the strongest experiences. And so you'll find that as you work with the different sense gates, there'll be strong points within your energy system that generate peak moments, for lack of a better word, where you hear your name screamed and then all of a sudden disappears, where the energy discharges on a highly charged frequency. Now, most people, their early clairaudient experiences are going to be when they're waking up in the morning, that they'll hear a voice talking to them, or their dead grandmother will appear at the end of their bed, and just as they're starting to wake up, they see their grandmother and they become awake, the grandmother will disappear. This is because you're half in a conscious state and half in an unconscious sleep state. Your brainwave patterns moving through the theta range to the alpha, and as you become conscious, you have this window or door into the astral world opened. Now, people that have had trauma, have holes in the aura, or they've destroyed their matrices with drugs, and these holes exist, they'll have this hole open all the time while they're conscious. So a part of their awareness, if they pay attention to that energetic space, they'll become ungrounded and they can't control the information flow passing through the hole. So this can be a very, very unstable situation. So you obviously don't want that. You want to create these forms of equanimity through conscious mastery and training, self-mastery. You don't want to have any of these experiences happening without your control. So accidental experiences are generally unwanted. You want conscious experiences. But the accidental experiences that do happen, you can tune into the frequency to master those particular experiences. Now, the next aspect of the clairaudient work is 3 transformations. You go into sound consciousness, and then you do the 3 transformations through the vital, astral, mental, through the akasha into light, and you transform the consciousness up into light. And this is my preferred method because it only gives access to spiritual intelligences that are non-dual in nature to me, so that they can communicate with me, and lower astral beings cannot. So I basically shut myself off from the form realms, and it's the upper formless non-dual light intelligences that I open myself up to. And those are beings on the path of light that I'm most interested in interacting with. So I do 3 transformations through the path of light up through the crown while in sound consciousness, and then I strengthen that link for those intelligences to communicate with me and give guidance in relation to what I'm doing. So this method I found the most beneficial because it's safe. You're not going to be hearing the weirdness of the astral plane randomly and rhythmically coming through your consciousness. You're only going to be interacting with that skill when you're in meditation, when you're in a high degree of concentration and interacting with this non-dual light. So, okay, I hope this helps with getting a grasp on developing clairaudience. It gives you some basic exercises. There are many more exercises, like using tinctures and earplugs and charging up the tincture and the earplug and putting them in, and then putting sigils onto them and so forth. So there's many, many rituals for awakening clairaudience. But the foundation work, which I just described, really is essential for all of them, because this is what gives you control of the skill. So go through the basics, master the basics, and then once you have that platform of control there, then you can use amplifiers like sigil magic and fluid condensers and magic items. Like you can take a small bead, highly charge it, wrap it in cotton, and then put the cotton and the bead in your ear, like an earphone, and then open the energy akashically, and lots of sounds are going to be coming through because they're all stored in that small bead. And so there's many of these methods which work incredibly well for those of you who want to develop them. Okay, we'll leave it there, and thanks for your time, and see you on the next video.